As a financial advisor, have you ever noticed that many of the offers that your competitors use are very similar or in some instances the exact same? Being, let's build your financial future together, a free consultation, or let's build a comprehensive financial plan to get you on track for retirement, right? All are very cookie cutter, very copy and paste. And good, but there's just so much more room for improvement. It's like driving up the road and seeing three gas stations and thinking, all right, well, gas station A is cheaper than B and C, so I'm going to go with A. So they're making a price based decision because each offer is exactly the same. So the price is the only thing that they can make a judgment on. And that's what I see a lot with these offers in the financial advisory space. There's actually a way that you can get your prospects to happily pay more money by just changing the way you present your offer. And the beauty of this is you don't actually have to change anything about your service or what you do, but simply how it's presented. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can make simple changes to your offer and then how to make it so people, like I said, are willing to pay so much more money because they see more perceived value in what you have to offer that is different from what everyone else is doing. And just for some context, my name is Doug Funa. I was formerly a financial advisor and am now helping fellow advisors grow their business. So let's get straight to the chase and let's do this. And simply what this comes down to is that your offer may not be converting because you're charging the wrong price. And two factors that come into play here are who your offer is for and does the who, as in who should be seeing your offer, know it's actually for them. So that leaves us with two options. Option one is we can lower the price, or option two is we can raise the value. And just take a second to think about this. The obvious answer is raising the value. So why is this, right? Why should we raise the value and not lower the price? Because it seems like it would make sense if we just simply lower the price because it would look more attractive. But in reality, it's actually doing the opposite of what we want. And how we raise value in order to justify a price increase is essentially what we're doing here. So how can we increase perceived value? How do we do this, right? So we have to make a transition here. How do I exit out of this? Sweet. We need to transition from a price-based decision. So think of competition between gas stations, right? Like I said earlier, you're looking at who is the cheapest. And what this does is it is essentially a race to the bottom, right? Because you can only hit zero. And that's why a lot of gas stations, especially when they compete right next to each other, a lot of them churn really quickly. They go out of business because they just can't compete with the other prices. So this is a recipe for disaster for most businesses. So that's why we want to transition into a value-based decision. Think competition between luxury brands. People don't buy a Rolex because it's cheaper than the other watches out there. They buy a Rolex because they see the value in it, right? Their brand is so strong that the value that the Rolex has increases dramatically, right? So this isn't a price-based decision. This is a value-based decision. And this is, I'm not saying, we need to go luxury here, but we need to make our prospects think in this way when they're looking at what we have to offer, right? Because if they're looking at it through a price-based decision, then we are forced to lower our prices and contrary to our competitors. And this is that drive to the bottom that we just don't want. So price can only go down to zero, but can go infinitely high. So the goal is they buy a tremendous amount of value at what they feel is a discount without actually changing the service. And this is the beauty of this. We're not actually changing what you're doing. We're just changing how it's presented. So here's a good illustration, right? We have two lines here. We have one that represents value and we have one that represents price. In this point right here where value intersects price is the limit, the absolute limit of where a customer is willing to buy at. So because if the value of said product or service is below the price, it wouldn't make sense to buy, right? That'll be a foolish purchase. It wouldn't make any sense. It's like buying a cup of coffee for $50. It's just like, makes no sense. But if the value is above price, then this will create a greater inclination for said prospect to buy what you have to offer, right? So let's just say, and these are two extreme examples, but it's just to get the point across. A car that costs a brand new 2025 Ford F-150 that costs $3,000, right? You would think, wow, that is a steal. It's almost too good to be true. So that's why that's just the price to value discrepancy that we want to create, right? We want to expand that as much as we possibly can. And we do that by increasing the perceived value of what we have to offer, right? So we can justify a price increase. So this is what most advisors do, right? They look at the marketplace and then they see what everyone else has to offer, being their competitors. They take the average, they go slightly below to quote unquote stay competitive. This is a little, there we go. They provide what competitors offer, but with a little more, and then they end up with a value prop of more for less. Value proposition. That's what that says. Of more for less, right? So this, in theory, makes sense, but in reality, it's not doing what the advisor actually is intending, right? So this is, they say, okay, I'm going to take the average, I'm going to decrease it, and then I'm going to add a little bit more sizzle to the steak. So what this does is, speaking on behalf of your clients, right? A decrease in price decreases emotional investment, because it's essentially you're not putting your money where your mouth is. If you bought, sticking with the car example, I guess you bought a car for $5,000, you wouldn't treat it as good as if you bought a brand new car for $50,000, right? The perceived value would be much lower as well. Therefore, the results are actually going to decrease as well. And another issue is that the demandingness goes up. And what I mean by demandingness is your clients are going to be more skeptical. They're going to nag you more. They're going to be less optimistic, right? Because they bought it because it's cheap. They didn't buy it because of the actual value that it brings. And then revenue for fulfillment per customer is going to decrease as well. So these are the results that would follow based off of, typically, right? There obviously are exceptions, but universally, if you follow this doctrine, then this is most likely what's going to be the result. So now let's do something about this, right? Because we don't want to stay here. We do not want to stay here. We don't like this. And this is where riches in the niches come in. If you watched my previous video, essentially what I talked about is, so every advisor has a list of clients, right? Because if you didn't, you wouldn't make any money. So first we have our bad clients. And I'm going to say this now, nobody in your client list is inherently bad as a person, but as a client, they could just fit the demographic of not being so well to work with you specifically, right? Because a big part of being a financial advisor is the relationship. And, some people just don't mesh well with others. So I just wanted to make that clear. I am not bashing anybody. I love all people, but so your bad clients, least ROI, they are the most skeptical. It seems impossible to reassure them, right? And then you have your good clients. This is going to be the majority of who you work with, and they're good. They're good. They're tolerable. They bring in decent ROI, but you have better people, which are the people you have the strongest relationships with, right? They drive in the most ROI. They're the easiest to work with. They trust you the most, and most importantly, they get the most out of what you do, right? Because there will be a certain demographic of people that benefit more from what you do than others. And this is your great category. These are your best clients. So what you want to do is you want to get rid of your bad and your good clients, and you want to see what is so good about your great clients, right? What is so similar? So let's just say you work with doctors. Let's just say all your best clients are doctors with student loan debt. And this is, for simplicity, more likely than not, especially if you have more clients, it is going to be a bit more nitpicky and specific. But for simplicity, The example will be doctors with student loan debt, right? These are your top tier clients. They get the most out of what you do. So to reiterate, you're not changing your market. You are just increasing the perceived value of what you offer the people who get the most value out of it. And I, well, typo there, please forgive me. But this is essentially what we want to do. And here's a little question, right? Let me zoom in a little bit here. Which one do you think would cost more? Running shoes, running shoes for men, or running shoes for men with flat feet? More likely than not, running shoes for men with flat feet is going to cost more money, right? Just because the perceived value is superior in this example than the others, right? So for our example, we have a comprehensive financial plan. We also have a comprehensive financial plan for doctors. And we also have a comprehensive financial plan for doctors with student loan debt. If you were a doctor in student loan debt, what would you pay the most money for? It is this one by a landslide, and it's not even close, right? So what we are doing, we are taking the people that get the most from your service, and we are shouting them out directly by naming our offer or explaining what we do to make them think, wow, this is exactly for me. What they are offering is built for me. I am a doctor in student loan debt. And these are the people that you work best with and make the most value out of what you do. So that's why it's so important. And that's why you can make so much more money doing this. You know, I hope this is starting to make sense. And forgive me for repeating myself, but this is just, God, it just makes so much sense. So you are articulating their problems better than they've thought of. Higher prices because they believe you can articulate the solution better than they can. So if you articulate the solution being comprehensive financial plan for doctors with student loan debt, that is, like I said, it is hitting right in the chest, right? It is the value increase is day and night, night and day. Sorry. But this doesn't mean that you can simply raise the price and call it a day, right? Because what we need to do is we need to justify the price increase by more perceived value, right? That's why changing the name is so important. So our new price is going to be up here because we are increasing the value for the people that we work best with, being a new point of cancellation, which is at a higher point than it was before we made these changes. Because before we just had the simple cookie cutter copy and paste offer that every other advisor has or uses, but now we're splicing it up a little bit for the people that find the most value from our service. So now we are not only providing more value, but we're also making more money while we're doing it. We are differentiating from our competitors. So these are the results that follow, right? Emotional investment dramatically goes up because one, they know it's for them. They know it's for them specifically. And they are willing to pay more money. And because they're willing to pay more money, there is going to be a higher emotional attachment because of the amount of money that they're paying, right? That increase. And like I said, the perceived value is going to dramatically increase as well. The results are going to increase because you're only working with the people that you work best with. The demandingness is going to be lower because these people trust you that much more. And if you're offering the service that was built for them, right, they are going to have less of a reason to be skeptical because it is because in the back of their mind, this was built for me. How could it possibly go wrong? Right. And then revenue for fulfillment per customer is going to increase as well. So these are the new results that you are going to experience just by making this simple change, right? Such a simple change. And those think about it in perspective of your business, right? If you increase the price, your profits are going to go up. Your perceived value of self is going to dramatically increase as well. because you'd feel a whole lot better if you were selling mansions opposed to selling trailer park homes, right? You'd just feel like you have more sense of worth if you sold the mansions, if you increase the price. And this increases your perception of impact as well, because you're helping the people that you work best with, and you are giving them more ROI by working with those people that you work best with. Your perception of impact will increase, your service levels will increase, and your sales conviction will increase as well. And if you lowered your price, everything else would drop for the opposing reasons that I just explained, right? So, key takeaway: higher price is a higher perception of value. And if you niche down, that creates that perception of value that justifies the higher price. So the goal is to be so much more expensive than your competitors that a customer must pause and think, this cannot be the same category of solution as everyone else, thereby making you a category of one. And you're not changing what you're doing, you're simply changing how it's being presented. And even if you didn't niche down to a specific profession like a doctor or an engineer or only retirees, or let's just say you work with anybody, right? You work with everything that breathes. So you can just say, instead of comprehensive financial plan, that's your offer is a comprehensive financial plan for anybody because that's what they deserve. Just something that will increase the value, right? It's not going to increase it as much as niching down, but let's just say if working with people with over $3 million net worth, comprehensive financial plan specifically for 3 million or plus net worth individuals. You can just see how much more money you can charge because they know it's for them. So I know I am repeating myself, repeating myself, repeating myself. The next video, I am going to show you how you can increase this value to price gap even more. Because the more that we increase this gap without actually changing the price, we are going to make the prospect think it would be so stupid for me to say no. We need to make that a reality ethically and to the best of our ability using what we are already doing. So that is going to be next video. And I just want to thank Neil Patel, Larry Kim, Alex Hermosi. These are people that have really, structured this way of thinking for me. And it is so eye-opening. And it really is a pleasure to share this with you because I really hope that, you can implement this and make a whole lot more money from it. So that is going to be this video. Like I said, the next video will be how to make even more money by making that wow factor in your offer even greater than it already is. So hope you enjoyed. If you found any value from this, if the perceived value of this was, off the charts, please drop a like, subscribe, drop a comment if you have any questions, concerns. I'd love to answer anything you got. Or if you just want to say something because you just want to say something, by all means, what's up? Let's chat. But all right, I will see you guys in the next one. I hope this helped in any sort of way. And if you made it all the way through, thank you so much. All right, peace out.